Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're ready. Mr. Banda.
Well, good morning, everybody. As the CEO of the Arab British Chamber of Commerce, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this morning webinar. The UAE is open for business. Preparation for this event have been guided by our awareness of the requirements of exporters and investors looking to enter the UAE and seeking to develop their business in the wider Arab regions and beyond. On behalf of the Chamber, I would like to express thanks to the corporate group, its available contribution toward making their webinars possible. I would like also to thank the Embassy of the UAE in London for its ongoing support. Ladies and gentlemen, the UAE acts as the strategic global hub for doing businesses in the Gulf and around the world. Energy, digital technology, innovation, education, healthcare, and financial service are among those sectors. The UAE with growing potential for expansion. Looking to 2021, the UAE and the UK are keen to explore the potential for deepening their collaboration and full awareness that opportunities will increase as we control the COVID-19. The forthcoming Dubai Expo, postponed into 2020, will present a unique platform for businesses to raise their portfolio at a global level. Furthermore, the post-Brexit environment is opening up more venues for productive private sector's engagement. It is clear that this is an opportunity moment to reinforce the historic and deepen roots ties between the UK and the UAE. The Chamber is geared up and ready to play its part to help exporters and investors win new businesses and make a successful of their involvement in bilateral trade and investment in the UAE. Please contact us to find out more how the Chamber can help you. And one more time, please explore UAE. It's a great opportunity. And today's webinar will explain how it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banda. That's a superb introduction to UAE. I would just like to add my thanks to the panelists and to Ayman and Fayha and Marwan from the UAE Embassy for their support. But I must emphasize the corporate group are a very important member of the Arab British Chamber of Commerce, and they've been a member for a number of years. And it's always a delight to see them either in live situation, which I've done many times in the past, or even more better to continue that relationship on a webinar. So it is extraordinary to have superb panelists, but equally I must thank all the attendees to this webinar. I think we've got about nearly 150 people online. But I will tell the people online to stay online because there is a prize draw at the end. So if you're not around online, then you might lose the opportunity to gain your prize. Very quickly, just want to touch a bit on UAE. I've been in Chamber for many years, and I've seen UAE grow throughout the 80s, 90s, and it's exponentially grown in such a speed that it's basically mind-blowing. They've built the biggest and the best infrastructure in the region. They've got the tallest building in the region. They've got the best business practices in the region. Ease of doing business is superb in UAE. Really, the whole tools there for trading with UAE, but also living, working, and learning in UAE. They've broken every barrier. And last year, or this year, you've seen the Mars mission, which is extraordinary. But to top it up, now they're going to do a moon mission with a land car landing on the moon by 2024. As you see, the country is moving at such a pace and changing its whole dynamics of industry. So business with the UK and GCC grown exponentially. 58 or 55 billion last year trade between the UK and Arab. It's extraordinary, a large market. And they supply not just to UAE, but the GCC, but they're a hub for a wider region. So the opportunities are not just limited to the boundaries or the borders that UAE holds, but it is a global hub that people can actually entertain. Now, having said that, I would like to, it gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Marwan Nakbi to give us a few words on behalf of the embassy. Far away.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction and for inviting me along to this discussion today. Mr. Bandar, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning for you in London and good afternoon for our friends and colleagues in UAE and in Dubai in particular. It's a great honor to be with you all at this wonderful gathering. Let me begin on behalf of the UAE Embassy by thanking our host, the Arab British Chamber of Commerce, which for decades has been playing an important role in the promotion of bilateral trade and investment between Britain and the Arab countries. I would like also to extend my appreciation to the corporate group, CBS, for their contributions over many years as a facilitator of trade and investment between our two countries. Today's event couldn't be timelier as traders and investors globally look forward to growth and continuity in their practices, fostering new relations and partnerships. Businesses around the world and in the UAE continue to adjust their operating procedures to address distributions caused by COVID-19. In the UAE, we have been the acceleration of both the digital and the greening economy agendas, offering new opportunities across both public and private sectors. Indeed, the world is fighting an ongoing battle with the coronavirus, but the UAE is the forefront of tackling the spread of the infection through a unified approach and testing, technology innovations, and connectivity. Our country is blessed in many ways, but does not stop us from providing for a sound and sustainable future. Our modern day position enables us to act at the most easterly and westerly hub for Europe and Asia, respectively, giving you an access to a third of the world's population with a 4-hour flight. Our diversification strategy is set to accelerate the economy further. The UAE is often seen as a hydrocarbon-based economy, but it is to our credit that we have successfully reduced the contribution of oil to the national economy. Oil today accounts for only 30% of the country's GDP. The UAE has already set in motion a strategy to further limit the dependence on oil to 20% by 2021. As a nation, we have set our eyes on prosperity and stability for our people from an early stage since our unification in 1970. Today, and on the eve of marking our 50th anniversary in 2021, thanks to our leaders' vision, we are now the most diversified economy in the region. Undoubtedly, we live in a global economy where we are ever increasingly interconnected. The imperative of working with your partners and the desire to forge new relations with a degree of openness in economic and trade relations is an integral element to sustain economic growth in the 21st century. The United Kingdom is a long-standing, trusted, and valued friend of the United Arab Emirates. With the joint effort of both governments, enterprises, and people, the scope of and the scale of bilateral ties have expanded and developed beyond that. Today, cooperation between our two countries spans a broad spectrum of streams, from economic cooperation to strategic alliances and to cultural collaborations. Our people-to-people relation is also a manifest of several non-trade fronts. There are over 5,000 British companies currently operating in the UAE. Over 100,000 nationals are estimated to be living, working, and studying in the UAE, helping to underpin a particularly strong presence of a British business country. 2015, for example. Hello?
Please.
You hear me? Yeah. In 2015, for example, 1.5 million British tourists visited the UAE. The UK leaving the EU has locked many minds locally and around the world and what it means to them. Invariably, UAE commands an enviable position and its readiness to offer growth opportunities for UK companies and investors whichever. UAE offers first-class infrastructure, burgeoning services sector, stellar performances from tourism sector and growing knowledge economy, and equally relevant, a stable environment to do business. And with Dubai hosting Expo 2021, an $8 billion project that will, we hope, deliver an event to remember. The Expo is forecast to boost Dubai's economy by $23 billion, and it will culminate with an event that will receive an unprecedented 25 million visitors coming to Dubai over 6 months, many of which I hope will be from British nationals. Moreover, as an embassy, we plan a series of events in 2021, detailed of which we will share with the Chamber, including the first across the UAE Trade and Investment Roadshow, covering Scotland, Northern Powerhouse, Wales, and West Midlands. And for the first time, the UAE will also be organizing a UAE Day in the UK with several business and cultural events. I therefore invite you all to leverage this shared platform to collaborate in establishing a strong ties, and we look forward to seeing you all in the UAE. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwan. Thank you. It's a terrific introduction, a great overview, and it's terribly important to points that you touched upon, especially with the renewable energy and your target for 2020, and you've got a further target going to 2050, which basically will make you carbon neutral completely. It'll be the first country in the world to achieve that, and I think it's an extraordinary effort. As I said, UAE is always breaking boundaries, always creating great moments, and we're very pleased that you're having loads of events next year, and we'll be delighted to work with you in delivering them. With Expo 2021, we would like to take a delegation from the UK and hopefully working with the embassy and the corporate group to make that a success. A lot of opportunities, a lot of moments for us to do that. So thank you so much, Marwan. Now I'd like to move on to my colleague Feha Sultan, a very good friend of the Chamber, UK Director of Business Development for Corporate Group in the UK. Far away, Lay.
Thank you, Abdulsalam. First, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting us, and also to thank the Embassy of the UAE for their continued support to us. It's just a brief introduction of the corporate group, which is a UAE national-owned group based in Dubai and has reach all over the UAE and the region. I would like to mention our unique selling point, which is basically because it is owned by 3 brothers and a sister who are national Emiratis. They are very knowledgeable in the market. They have very good reach in the government, very good contact, and they are very keen to make things happen in their own country. I represent them here in the UK, and they are basically company formation specialists. They also do various other aspects and various other services, just like trade, registration of products, and I will share the website with you on the chat so you know and you can take a look at it. I represent them here in the UK, and my own background is that I've had almost 20 years experience with the UAE. I worked for 10 years with the UAE Embassy previously, and followed by 8 years with the government of Dubai, always based in London and always covering the UK and promoting and assisting companies in doing business in the UAE. So I'm here for you. You can call me, you can send me an email. I can give you complimentary free advice on how we can assist you to enter the market, whether you want to export your product, or you want to set up business, or you want just some business development. So as I said, we are one-stop shop, and I'm here for you to service UK companies in the future. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Feha. That's a great introduction, and I have to say Feha has been a superb ambassador for the corporate group. over the years. She's done superb work, and I compliment her on the achievement she has achieved. But obviously, last but not least, we have to compliment the corporate group on all the services they're offering British companies. Very important services in how to enter the country, how to register products, how to register companies, how to set up. And it sometimes is a bit of a blur, but when you have somebody on the ground that can actually clarify those points for you, I think it makes life much, much more easy. So you've got the people on the ground now. So we're moving to the next session, which is UAE is open for business. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend, Mr. Ayman Al-Awadi. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to the audience in UK and hello to everybody. It's my pleasure to be a speaker on this panel. Great speakers here, and thank you, Mr. Bender and Mr. Abdulsalam from the chamber. I can witness that this is the biggest audience I'm overseeing over the webinar, and I'm proud to be part of it. I'll share my screen for the presentation. Okay. So UAE is open for business indeed. We are pretty much out there and receiving people, visitors and business and tourist people. I thought to share with you a couple of updates of what's happening in UAE in order for me to bring the audience up to date. The local events and conferences started 15 September, while international events indeed is going to start from, or has started already from 1st of October. We are witnessing the biggest exhibition show going to happen on December. It will be hosting GITEX Technology Week, GISEC, which is for the information security, and a version for the startups, which is called GITEX Future Stars, and last but not least, Future Blockchain Summit. These exhibition venues and events that is going to take place at the convention center in Dubai World Trade Center. It's another evidence that UAE is back on track, fighting the pandemic challenges that has brought to the whole universe, and we are welcoming both visitors from tourists and business people who are accessing the country here. Indeed, all economic sectors are reopened, from malls, cinemas, spas, gym. It was end of June, and nurseries, kindergarten schools from September, and also social events and wedding has been recently reopened by end of October. Dubai increases stimulus package that has been introduced since start of the pandemic. It is now valued at 6.8 billion dirham. The first package was 1.5 billion. It was introduced early of March, and then end of the March as a second package, 3.3 billion, and then it followed after with a third package on 11 of July, and then finally on 22 of October, which is valued at half billion dirham package. And this is another evidence that the UAE economy and the UAE government are doing its best to support the business ecosystem here in the UAE in terms of doing business locally in the market. Embracing the new normal, more information to share here is that ironically, Dubai now became very competitive to consider as a destination to relocate for residency and for home or for housing, because it has actually reached to low levels since 2010 with a market price rate of 896 in 2020. So this actually encourages everybody to relocate to UAE and consider UAE as a new home to do business and reside in UAE. Emirates Cargo, Emirates Sky Cargo has prepared the biggest and largest air cargo hub to handle the vaccination that is going to happen soon to deliver the vaccination to all over the world. through its mega terminal and facility that it can handle up to 10 million vials of vaccination to store between a temperature of 2 to 8 Celsius over 40,000 square feet. Another point I would like to share with you is that the UAE government has been very aggressive in terms of doing a remarkable job and maintaining the crisis of the pandemic at its lowest. And this is through sets of strategic communication that is, characterized with the transparency, with avoidance of creating disruption and confusion to the people. So the government was very keen to be proactive from the day one, and hence the good results we are witnessing here in the UAE in terms of leading the country to be a role model for all other countries to follow when it comes to crisis management and handling the situation of the pandemic. And the businesses here are also pretty much governed through these rule breakers that has been launched within the UAE in terms of controlling the business community and doing business in a controlled environment. So therefore, everybody should be aware that there will be penalties imposed on those ones who are breaching the formalities and the protocols, and even warning issues on them. The visitors to Dubai must undergo through 2 COVID PCR tests, and this is one test before your arrival to UAE. So this is something that you should be aware of. And then another one which is in the airport. And then once you take the test, then afterwards you should be maintaining in your residence, whether it's a hotel or home in Dubai or in the UAE for 1 day until you get the test result. Basically here there is an exemption for the German nationals and UK nationals who's coming from UK and Germany in terms of having the test being optional when it comes to landing to Dubai. So therefore, these are basic recent news that has been launched handling the testing formalities for the PCR COVID-19. So you should be aware of what needs to be done in order for you to follow these protocols. Other things that I would like to share with you is I have provided links for you, one from Dubai FDI, which is called the DubaiAdvantage.com, and another one from Abu Dhabi Investment Office, which is abudabi.ae. These websites will does provide great statistics and downloads that you could have in terms of what the UAE as country is offering of opportunities during the pandemic phase, and also in 2021. And that's a really good material that I would encourage all the audience to have a time and visit these websites. Throughout a couple of months ago, the UAE, especially in Dubai, has introduced new sets of the residency visas in Dubai, and I would like to tap on those. Is one called remote working visa, which is for employees or for employers who are for the employees who are actually working abroad, and they decide to use Dubai as a hub to reside and deliver their work from Dubai, attending to their employers abroad. And this is valid for 1 year, and the cost of it is 1,000 dirham with health insurance coverage. And also the eligibility of this is to maintain a monthly salary income of 18,000 dirham. The second one, which is Dubai is proudly introducing as a retirement visa scheme for those who would like to use Dubai and UAE as a destination for their retirement. and this is applicable for the foreign residents who are already in UAE or those people who are already living living abroad and they are aged at plus 55 years old. Renewed is every 5 years, the renewal mechanism, and they have to have valid health insurance. The couple of the requirements behind it is that they have to maintain a 20,000 monthly income, having savings of 1 million dirham, and also or one of the options actually is to own property valued at 2 million dirham and above. These are the certain parameters with regards of how to avail the retirement visa. With regards of the Emirates airline on how is welcoming and receiving the passengers in Dubai airport, would like to mention that they have provided recently a really remarkable experience of contactless experience via biometric path in Dubai airport. So literally speaking, you would be walking into an airport without touching any device or any handling, engagement with any person. So therefore, you are good to go all the way to the exit door. And then the EK flight is also providing a 75 destination to fly out from Dubai, increasing since the lockdown, and day by day increasing the destination to reach back to its normal in 2021. When we talk about the business regulations and taxation, I thought to give a summary here, an overview of how to tackle the business operation and the regulations in the UAE. There are two jurisdictions to choose from, being mainland and free zone. The mainland, they are situated within the 7 Emirates of UAE, and the free zone, they are scattered within these 7 cities. The majority being in Dubai, being more than 34 free zones in Dubai itself, and providing number of business parks that is available, catering for IT industry, for industrial, and for media, biotech, healthcare, and also. And the regulations here that you should be complying with is basically to govern your business within the jurisdiction that you work from, and it's also to protect your labor rights and the consumer rights and also intellectual property rights. The regulations also are there to address the HSE, health, environment, safety issues with regards of doing business and practicing within the free zone and the mainland. The applicable business regulations of each jurisdiction differs from one territory or one zone to another. So in the mainland, you are having the regulation of the UAE Federal Law number 2 of 2015 on commercial companies, while free zone, they are basically governed through general business and practices within the free zone and adapting to local government rules and regulations within that free zone. So these are the business regulations that you should be aware of while conducting business. When it comes to applicable taxes in the UAE, we have VAT as a 5% tax on majority of services and goods, and this has started since January 2018. We have excise tax, and that is ranging from 50 to 100%, and these are related to goods that is either harmful for the environment or for the human being. And there is no corporate tax or income tax except very minor sector, which is for foreign banks and oil companies. Other than that, these are only the tax systems that is available in UAE and being practiced since then. When we talk about the legal landscape and the business operation, a foreign investor can conduct business through following formats as a legal entity. Whether you could incorporate a local entity in the mainland, for example, or whether you will be registering a branch or representative office of a foreign company, or whether you would be establishing a free zone entity. And finally, you might be entering into a commercial agency agreement by appointing a UAE national person or UAE national company to take care of the distribution of your products. When it comes to the first point, incorporating a local entity, the most convenient and the most used legal entity format, it's a limited liability company. And then it becomes a sole establishment. The limited liability company takes care of the matter of 5149 shareholding structure, and then the sole establishment, obviously, it will be a single owner company that is possible for a number of business activities touching professional license, for example. A limited liability company in the commercial licenses are basically dictated for the trading of goods, contracting, and so forth. Registering the branch of foreign companies, here it would be basically, it's a branch of parent entity, let's say established in the UK, and would require the registration with Ministry of Economy, and therefore appointing of a local service agent. And the only drawback of the branch of foreign company is that you are not allowed to conduct trading activities. Rather, you have to conduct the services or contracting activities, and it has to match to the similarity of the business activities that is available at the parent entity. Establishing a free zone entity, there are the sole establishment, and then there is the limited liability company in the free zones also, which majority of the free zones, they do cover the same legal structure framework. The regularity bodies in the mainland that you should be aware of is always the Department of Economic Development, which is the issuing authority of the licenses in the mainland, Immigration, which we call it DNRD, and Ministry of Human Resources, which is MOHRI, and also other government bodies, depending on nature of your business activities. It dictates for you to comply with the certain approval processes with other federal and local governments. With these three government bodies, that they will be considered as an ongoing stakeholder to deal with your business. It is important to have a proper relationship and engagement with them, since issuing partner visas and issuing employment visas, you have to go through the Immigration Department and the Ministry of Human Resources. And then when it comes to running your business as an entity, then the DED is going to be your main stakeholder to comply to. Some of updates that I would like to share with you is that as a corporate group, we are hosting delegation from Israel, inshallah, by December 2020. And there will be many other delegations from Israel that will be scheduled in 2021. And we will be also focusing on a couple of delegations from UK, in which our colleague Fayha will be the channeling person for that, and then would be taking care of that matter from UK, inshallah. TCG expansion and KSA, we have our plan in Q1 to establish our second international subsidiary to bring reach and exposure of our clientele who are based in UAE, and now they are looking after expansion plans in the Saudi. And last but not least, we encourage our audience and our followers to follow us for our upcoming webinars. We conduct on an average 2 webinars per month, tackling different topics and subject matters that is touching Dubai or UAE or even GCC in terms of doing business and compliancy services and so forth. With this, I would be passing the floor to Mr. Abdulsalam. Thank you.
So detailed, but with your permission, I would like to be able to share it with all our attendees, because I think there's a lot of information there and it's going to generate a lot of questions later on. But
yes,
very importantly, which you very touched upon, is really UAE is open for business. And I think you said the word role model. And I think UAE has been an absolute role model, and I commend them in dealing with COVID-19 and opening the country for business. And it's great to see that people can fly to UAE and attend the very important exhibition. We always say to people, the way to do business is do it face-to-face. Webinars are superb in the meantime, but face-to-face business is how you build it. I know the British government is actually in discussions with UAE government to have an air corridor to stop the 14-day quarantine requirement. So I don't know if that's been finalized, but hopefully very soon. And we can join you in UAE, inshallah. Thank you so much for that great presentation. Now, I've got to move on to our next topic, which is UAE imports, distribution, and tracking practices, FMCG. Maybe we can get clarification what that FMCG means. Can I call on Mr. Louis Bolbuena to give us an introduction? I hope I pronounced your name properly. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi, good morning to all. I hope you can hear me properly, and I hope everyone is doing really well and receiving significant insights in today's webinar. Thank you for having me as one of your speakers today. It is my absolute pleasure. My name is Louis. I'm heading the Corporate Trade House, which is part of the mother company, the Corporate Trade Group. Just to give you a brief introduction of who we are a trading house mainly focusing on FMCG or fast-moving consumer goods. So that could be classified as non-food and food products. A lot of FMCG brands at the moment across different countries became our strategic partner or commercial agent on behalf of the brand owner, who wants basically to enter or top the UAE market in terms of distribution. The Corporate Trade House is also a distributor itself, covering the channels of retail supermarkets, hotels, restaurants, catering, and now the biggest market or channels, which is the e-commerce. We also act as a local representative, basically those companies or startups or brand owners who would be much more easier for them to appoint someone who could act on their behalf to get their products here or distribute it to the proper channels. We also assist and provide services pertaining to product registrations, which is, I would say, it's one of the most or crucial part of the trading to get it started and moving your distribution to the country. We do assist partners on logistics supply chain, connecting through distributors in the UAE. But also as a trading house, we cover and have networks in North Africa, the rest of the GCC countries, and the Levant region. I am delighted to share with you the topic, which is timely, current, and very useful for startups, manufacturers, brand owners, and SME. And that is let me go to my slide. So that is UAE imports, distribution, and trading practices for FMCG products. I'm not sure if anyone can see my screen at the moment, just to double check with that. Right. It has been significantly witnessed that the UAE continues to grow its import and export capabilities, firmly positioning itself as a global logistic hub. To begin the process of import of any products falls into FMCG category, I'm sharing you the first slide, which is the UAE imports overview in general. So of course, one of the top requirement is you need to have a valid UAE trading license, which is a must, or again, as I've mentioned, must be presented by a local representative or a distributor who of any company who can you appoint. There are practices on how local companies normally import products to the UAE, and that can be into different classifications of origin. So there are origins which the goods are coming or originating from outside the UAE or rest of the world, and can be consigned or sell or basically ship it to the UAE local market. So the UAE local market comprises of A, the existing distributors, or B, could be the distributor directly targeting or tapping the channels of the retail markets and the other channels such as hotel, restaurants, and catering. The rest of the world can be also consigned or directly sell it to free zones of other Emirates. So currently we have the Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ajman, Fujairah, Sharjah, and Ras Al Khaimah, or the rest of the world to any GCC countries which cover KSA, Bahrain, Oman, and Kuwait. So another origin or classification of origin that can be originated, which my colleague Ayman has mentioned, is the free zones of Dubai. So currently there are a number or multiple free zones in Dubai which are established, and that is basically classified as one of the origin of the products, of any kind of products that falls into FMCG. That can be also consigned or sell it to UAE local market, the free zone of the other Emirates, and the GCC countries. All free zones in the UAE are part of the country's territory, but they are equally outside the customs territory. So hence they are subject to custom control other than the normal customs procedure. So the UAE itself has established a trading relations between both within the Middle East and globally, which make it one of the easiest country in the world to do business with. And these include minimal imports, export tariff. We practice between the neighboring GCC countries. So the connection between the UAE and the rest of the GCC countries are really, really valuable. So duty applicable for all import of goods that are meant for the consumption in the UAE local market are 5% import duty on most of the items. So basically that there's a 5% custom duty on that, 0% on selected raw materials, diplomatic goods, military goods, and charity, 50% on alcohol, 100% on cigarettes and tobacco, and free zone licenses are exempt of 5% custom duties. So the next slide is pertaining to who control and approve what. So this is really, really important if you have a product that you want to sell or distribute into the UAE market, whether those products are non or under the FMCG category. One of the, before we can import any product, it has to go through with the product registration, application, and approval from the respective UAE authorities. Imports or buyers must register the products and obtain the necessary approval prior in order for them to trade and basically import the products. So each authority, which I'm going to go through with you, each one of them has different sets of requirements, regulations, and processes. So who are the approving authorities in the UAE and what product falls under each office? The first is the Ministry of Health, which obviously all the medical and pharmaceutical products, including the equipment, which normally be supplied to hospitals, clinics, and even spas, some of that. The Dubai municipality, which controls the authority to approve products to get it imported. FMCG category, mainly from food and non-food. So there are two branches of Dubai municipality, which is the food item registration, where all the food products, raw materials are going to be registered in that. And the Montaji is basically registrations application for non-food, which includes detergents, cosmetics, and cleaning products. Emirates quality mark, such as all the imported mineral waters and dairy products. the ESMA, or the Emirates Authority for Standardization and Metrology, which falls under the ECAS scheme, which are the products such as the electronics and appliances, metrology, petroleum, and other regulated products. There are also the TRA, or the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority, which follows the products such as SIM cards and mobile phones. And the last is the DCA, which is basically the Dubai Civil Aviation, to name a few, would be drones approval to get it registered. Other than the conventional trading through modern trade or traditional trade, modern trade falls the classification of the retail supermarkets, hypermarkets, and big grocery shops. Traditional trades are basically wholesalers or those who has existing trading business in sort of, they do re-export into other countries, such mainly to Africa. So HoReCa channels, which covers the hotel, restaurants, and catering or cafes, selling through the e-commerce platform has witnessed a massive increase in terms of revenue. And this is what I want to actually give you a good insight on how progressing and big the UAE market in terms of e-commerce for FMCG products. A lot of people, ever since the COVID had started, witnessed a significant increase on doing or trading or buying everything online. And that has significantly witnessed a really, really big percentage of buyers and basically like using the e-commerce platform. Dubai and the UAE remain a hub for the e-commerce growth, whether in attracting startups or in creating multiple channels to ensure safe and secure payments. Currently in the UAE, an e-commerce represents 4.2% of the retail revenue, and it is estimated to grow by an average of 23% by 2022. Recent statistics illustrates this change very clearly. Just to give you an idea, like how many licenses, what is increasing consumer demand, 196 licenses were issued to the e-commerce business sector in the UAE in May 2020. This is the highest number of business licenses to be issued in a sector. 300% increase in consumer demand for e-commerce services in the UAE, which was recorded in the first 5 months of 2020. So this is basically like ever since like the lockdown began. And 943 licenses were issued to new businesses in the first 3 months of the year. So 179 increase from the first 3 months of 2019. Now, how can we trade through FMCG products into the major e-commerce platforms in the UAE, such as the Amazon.com, .ae, or Noon.com, after you form a local company or basically assign a local representative? So now, product registration in Dubai, as I mentioned, is like really crucial in this. So you have to have an existing company to get into any e-commerce platform in the UAE and begin to trade. So you need to register as a vendor and basically upload your listings and ready to trade. So that really is the process. However, to register a product or to register as a vendor, you need to have an existing trading license. You need to have a tax identification number as well, or certificate. And basically, if you have a product which falls under any category, it needs to have a necessary approvals of the product from the respective authority, which means any food or non-food falls under Dubai municipality. So on that, the requirements begins with collecting all the relevant data, certificate of analysis, quality tests, and whatever the requirement of that particular product. So the artwork or the label, which basically we need to submit a complete artwork where it illustrates or tells you that the whole product, which shows the ingredients, expiry date, and basically translations of the label into English and Arabic, which I'm going to mention you what are those. So product registrations comes under also an additional requirement, which should be the label assessment. So the label assessment or the artwork of the product, which needs to have a correct brand name, the product name, production expiry date, the barcode, which is really, really important, the country of origin, which is mandatory. If there's any kind of instructions on how to use the product, and basically the ones I've mentioned is to have an Arabic translation for every single product. So now requirements of Dubai municipality, like the Arabic translations, is mandatory for the elements such as the production expiry date, the ingredients, and the instructions to use. Normally there is a system, if you form a company or your existing local distributor has an existing portal of Dubai municipality or ESMA or Montaji, so everything are being done on the application through online, and the application normally takes between 7 to 14 days depending on your product and depending on the documents that you have submitted on the day of application itself. So normally municipality or any government officers will give you a feedback whether you need to submit more supporting documents to justify the registration, or basically they are going to approve your product. So once the product has been approved, from then you can basically import the product. So you have 5 years validity of the product, and your product are going to be protected in terms of the label and the brand. So you can import and re-export your product and basically move whatever like the products you have registered either within Dubai, the Free Zone Dubai, or outside the UAE. So again, one of the good thing about is basically trading the UAE is almost hassle-free. I've been doing an FMCG distributions for the last 13 years of my career. I've covered the whole African market, Eastern countries, and even the Southeast Asian. Now I'm focusing on the UAE, Levant, and North African markets. So in any kind of question and inquiry on how we could be valuable to you guys, especially I've seen a lot of manufacturers are in the meeting at the moment. Whether you are a brand owner, startups from the UK or from Europe, and you want someone who has the expertise, knowledge, and know-how, how we can help you to get your products into the UAE, just approach us anytime, because we are the right partners for you guys, a strategic partner. And basically, we are not going to waste your time, and basically just make sure that you are on the right track, because we have the expertise actually to help you and basically grow the business together and help you out to distribute not only in the UAE again, because we have networks across the regions, including North Africa, and then we can both do and grow your brand together. So back to you, Mr. Abdel Salam, and thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope I made sense and contribute some significant insights.
Can you hear me now? Excellent. Thank you, Louis, for that great presentation. And it's very poignant and very important, particularly now as UK is, I didn't want to use this word, Brexit is kicking in between UK and trade with the EU. And obviously, this is very important for people to know and must know that trading with the Arab world has not changed. The business continues as usual. Wherever changes happen with EU and the UK does not impact trading. And it's very important that you raise the raft of documentation that you need to register products in the UAE. We as a Chamber of Commerce now have to plug our services, if I may, issue and verify all export documents, and especially our Arab certificates of origin on all the health certificates, all the trade agreements. They're verified by us and then legalized by the embassy. That piece of work continues as usual. So I encourage people who are listening to us, nothing changes after the 1st of January 2021. But it's excellent information. Obviously, we will post your presentation to the members who are attending. And thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Now we move on to the next Next session, opportunities for technology and innovation in UAE wider region. Mr. Ali Hassan, over to you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this webinar. I am delighted to be representing Dubai and the Dubai International Financial Center as part of this UAE presentation today. Let me just get my presentation up. Can you see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so DIFC, as it's commonly known, is a Dubai government initiative, and it was set up in 2004. And since that time, it's become the largest financial services and professional services hub serving the Miaza region. So that is Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. That's what we see our sphere of influence as being. Over the last 2 years, we've also pivoted towards technology. And in 2020, despite what's been going on, and maybe because of what's been going on, we've seen the growth in that area accelerate significantly. So before I go on to illustrate how Dubai and the DIFC is supporting innovation, let's just quickly recap on the merits of the market opportunity. So lots of data points on this slide. I'm not going to go through all of it. You will probably have the presentation circulated afterwards. But in essence, you have got diversifying and growth economies within the region. You've got very supportive demographics, 40% of the population under 25. You have increased demand for financial services through the wealth that's being created, not just at the sovereign level, but also the private wealth pools that we're seeing growing. And interestingly, you've got very high digital penetration, 21% higher smartphone penetration than in Europe. And then looking at Dubai, and some of my fellow speakers have already covered the attributes of this global city. I mean, it really has built on its heritage as a commercial hub, and it's worked, and we've worked very hard to put in the hard and soft infrastructure to support business, and to provide the quality of lifestyle to attract the best talent from around the world. And actually, it's interesting because I think COVID, for example, has maybe challenged everyone to think, actually, I can do my job, you know, my interests from anywhere. And I think Dubai as a location has lots of merit. So just turning towards digital, the last speaker actually touched upon this. We're seeing significant opportunities in the digital space. There's accelerated adoption. We're seeing business models in the B2B and B2C segments growing, and e-commerce, in fact, is growing at a CAGR of 28% from a lower base, but it's certainly increasing significantly. And that's a real opportunity for British talent and expertise to be exported into the UAE and that wider region. And the UAE government is very supportive and on point in this respect. It realizes that the digital economy going forward is going to be a significant part and a significant pillar of efforts in the future. For example, Dubai earlier this year announced the Dubai Future Districts, of which DIFC is part of. And this ecosystem is in place to nurture and support digital development, not only across financial services, but across all the different sectors that you have thriving in Dubai and the UAE. So hospitality, tourism, logistics, aviation, as well as financial services. And in terms of the DIFC's digital offering, well, we leverage off our existing substance. So we're recognized as the 12th most preeminent global financial center in the latest rankings. We're ranked #1 in the GCC, and within the UAE itself, we have 90% market share of financial services that are operating to international standards. There are 700 regulated firms, 2,500 companies, 26,000 people. A ready-made cluster for you to engage. And the secret sauce of that success has really been our adherence to international standards of financial regulation and indeed the tried and tested common law legal framework. So we're a jurisdiction within a jurisdiction. And Dubai and DIFC are truly international. There are other financial services centers in the region, but they tend to be more domestic in their focus, whereas Dubai and DIFC is international. And that commonality of laws and regs allows business models and control frameworks from elsewhere to seamlessly be integrated into the UAE ecosystem. And as a federal financial free zone, you have the various business-friendly aspects that are in place. In terms of the fintech scene in the Middle East, well, these numbers on this slide do are changing, but the message remains clear. There is vibrant growth with Dubai and DIFC as the largest cluster in the GCC. And in terms of fintech and all things tech, in fact, and where we support innovation, Fintech Hive is DIFC's focal point for digital businesses. It's an integral part of the center, and it provides ready access to potential clients and sources of capital. So we are part of Dubai's innovation fund, for example, that is looking to invest $300 million into innovating companies. We have a number of flexible and low risk options for market entry and a full suite of programs across the life cycle of companies. And even as a sign of the continuing momentum, even within this complex and challenging year that we're all having, the DFSA, our financial regulator, has had its most highest number of applications for its summer cohort in terms of the innovation testing license. And now turning to our future of finance strategy, there are a number of growth themes that we've identified, but I just want to distill that down into two. One is those key fintech verticals. Payments, for example, huge in the region. And you know, our regulator, the DFSA, has just put in place the most comprehensive payments regime in the region to support such businesses. So we see that as a significant growth driver going forward, and RegTech. And then we want to bring in the enabling ecosystems, the providers that can attract talent and innovation from around the world and match that talent, you know, with the capital that's available in the region. And then just finally, as well as technology and financial services, you know, we do attract multinational companies. You know, Dubai is actually home to 70% of Fortune 500 companies that are operating in the region. So their hub for the region sits in Dubai. And we've also introduced what we term prescribed companies. So these are a new set of structures that can be used and ideal for you, being used for holding company and private assets in a high standards, low friction business environment. So those are some highlights. I'm cognizant of the time, so I'll leave it at that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for that beautiful presentation. It's very poignant that the financial center, the IFC, we have known for many years, have done an extraordinary job, and you've grown and grown and grown. But it is important for the British the City of London to engage more with yourselves. I think there's a lot of scope, a lot of intelligence exchange and best practice exchange. But I think as we leave in Europe, again, I'll come back to that. I think Dubai gives us a great opportunity. But as you said very well, you're the hub of a financial center for the region, and I think you've done extraordinarily well. Thank you so much for that superb presentation. Right, move on to the next speaker. Last but not least, GCC order to cash solutions, local knowledge, and international standards. Mr. Ian Sherlock.
Thank you. And thank you very much for inviting us onto this webinar. It's a great honor. We're here today to look at elements to do with the key element of business, getting paid. We all like getting paid for the work we do. Now, does the GCC present a challenge with regard to getting business? One would argue no more than any other marketplace in the world, whether you're dealing with Germany, whether you're dealing with France, the US, Africa, Italy, the GCC is no different. What is different is the practices that you might follow within, sorry, are you able to see my screen? Yep. Okay, great. The practices that you may follow within the GCC might vary. You will still follow the same principles, but you might have to do it in a slightly different way. So when we talk about fundamentals of getting paid, one of the first things we always do, we always make sure we understand who we're actually dealing with. I can't walk into a Ferrari showroom but just buy a Ferrari. They're going to ask me lots of questions to make sure they know who I am, I can afford to pay it. Same principle in every element of business. Difference is with the UAE, you might be dealing with an international brand. Great. But do you know who the actual owners are that you're actually dealing with? Because it may be a franchise. So in some cases, it's not a problem. But always make sure you actually know specifically who you are dealing with. Now, when we're dealing with a customer in the UAE or any other location, we follow a process of a credit application process. We're all familiar with them in our day-to-day lives. So in the UAE, we just need to be a little bit more specific on the questions we ask. You know, questions that you might not ask in other locations. You know, because for example, in the UK, Europe, there are big credit referencing companies where you can just log online, click a couple of buttons, and get all of that information very quickly. I can go straight to company's house and get a lot of basic information on a UK company. Unfortunately, within the UAE, that information is not yet readily available to the wider group. It will be. However, at the moment, a lot of due diligence has to be done. A lot of questions have to be asked. And some of that information has to be validated. Like many other locations, you might not be able to, you might not always be dealing with the most honest. The UAE is no different. In fact, the UAE has got a lot of regulations in place to help support businesses to ensure that we go down the right route. However, we still must do our own due diligence and validations. Data availability, for example, in the UAE, because of the corporate tax structure, there's no real requirement for most companies to file financial accounts. Now, in the UK, Europe, many credit referencing firms actually rely on those financials to do their assessments of what is valid what is a good company, how financially strong they are, so on and so forth. If you do not have that information, the model or the method that you might follow within the UK, it falls flat on your face. This is where you need your local representation. This is where you need to have people who guide, and on the panel here, there's a number of people who can guide on the local regulations, how to step foot into the environment. But actually understanding how a company will pay. I've referenced here on my presentation, on my presentation, the 5 C's. It's a practice that's used in every location or by every finance credit house across the world. However, there's one thing we must always focus on, and that's character. Make sure we understand the character of the organization, the people. Big businesses, and I can talk of many big companies in many countries in the world. They may seem like it's a great contract to have, but actually getting paid can be a challenge. They have a lot of barriers. Understanding those barriers, those ways of navigating the corridors of payment, often it's hard to see those when you're working remotely. Actually making sure you understand those corridors to actually get to the payment, the right people to talk to, is essential. One of the things we advise is, upfront, make sure you gather your information, know the information, know who you're dealing with, know who you're going to go to if there's a problem further down the line. Know which jurisdiction you're going to be working in contractually. Now, there's one particular representative on this call. We're a member of DIFC, so we always highly recommend working under DIFC rules. But at the end of the day, sometimes things do go wrong. And if you do your upfront due diligence, the chances of things going wrong are materially reduced. Now, trying to resolve problems when you're 4,000 or 5,000 miles away and doing stuff remotely can be challenging. We've learned through the current situation that we can do stuff remotely, but nothing beats local and face-to-face interaction. So if there are problems, make sure you have got good agents, good people on the ground you can work with to actually assist you, resolve, meet people, even down to processing documents locally. Collections, dispute mediation, and there will be issues, there will be disputes, where nobody is naive enough to believe that every transaction runs perfectly 100% of the time. In those situations, you'll need support locally, or you'll need local guidance, whether that's legal, whether that's with regard to regulations. Make sure you understand who you need to call in to assist you. Local legal systems, often they've been considered a challenge, and some of them are. However, the market has greatly changed. Well, the processes, procedures have greatly changed and modernized over the last 10 years as I've been living and working in the UAE. And one of the simplest legal systems to navigate is, again, I'm going to refer to DIFC. So, and costs are always there with legal. Make sure you do planning, you understand how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. These are all negatives, or they sound like negatives, but unless you actually think about some of the negatives in advance, yeah, those small negatives could become very big negatives. One of the things we really always emphasize, and we work with many local and international brands, is the KYC process, making sure you know and understand your customers, and making sure you know and understand their procedures and processes for actually getting you paid. Because as much as we like doing business and seizing on all the great opportunities, it's not, if you don't get paid, the Ferrari is never going to get delivered. So I'm going to leave it, cut it short, because I'm conscious of time. But once again, thank you for the invite. And if there are any specific questions, we can be contacted through the chamber or directly through our website. We have been working in the GCC as an organisation now for 7 years and have grown organically, and now have a portfolio of many major international brands that we support in their order to cash process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian, for that wonderful presentation. I think it is always very important, what I've seen in my history in the chamber, about companies getting paid. Primarily, what I say to them is letters of credit is the best tool that saves you from not getting paid. Cashing as documents, but more importantly, to have the right documents. The Arab certificate of origin, the commercial invoice, duly legalized and certified by the embassy here in London. All these things are tools that allows you to actually get paid. So thank you so much for that. I do have one little thing I would like just to pose to our listeners. We're doing a little study here at the chamber, and we will want to learn what are the challenges and barriers and obstacles that exist in doing trade between the GCC and the UK. So please just ping me some emails and tell me what challenges people are facing out there. So now we're moving to Q&A session, which is going to be very brief because we've got a few minutes before we have to go, and we're going to have to do the famous draw. So one of the questions here we have: the UAE commercial transaction law was very recently amended. Is there anything companies should note among the measures in the amended law? How will they impact on their business activities, if at all? Who would be best placed to answer that?
Yes, I will go for that.
Ayman, please.
Yeah. Okay. The recent amendment of the UAE Commercial Law 2015 has actually introduced very not significant changes in terms of business operation, but though some enhancements actually. It is actually more of enhancement than significant new changes. So therefore, it has allowed for some more governance to adapt and to be applied for when it comes to do business. So for example, now you can appoint more than 2 managers on the limited liability companies, and the subject of bookkeeping and record keeping of the entity that has to go for more than for up to 5 years records is mandatory, and there are certain enhancement that has been introduced that is touching the private private joint stock market or a stock company type of legal structure that is not very wide or common, but though the most common ones is limited liability company. And also it has introduced a significant, I would say that a significant enhancement for the UAE and the GCC nationals in terms of introducing a single owner LLC concept, which was not available before. Though I can share with the audience or the person who has raised the question a list of all points or enhancement that has been introduced through the amendment of the 2015 article number 2 on a separate email.
Excellent. Thank you, Ayman, for that. We'll try and get the chap who sent this question to email us, and we'll pass it on to you immediately.
We'll do that.
The other question I have, advice for health tech companies in the UAE in terms of compliance and fundraising and grants. Who would like to take that one?
I can have a stab.
Ali, yes.
Please.
Yes, yeah.
Ali, please, far away.
Yeah. So, you know, as I mentioned, you know, the UAE and Dubai in particular is looking to support innovation across the various sectors. So there are a number of programs that you can look to engage with. Incubators, if it's a startup, or accelerator programs, you know, whether that's within DIFC or wider, you know, Dubai Future District. But if you know, I'd be happy to engage and help steer you in the right direction. But I think that as part of those programs, not only do you get mentoring from partners that will help shape your business in line with local requirements, but there's also access to capital, you know, depending upon you know, a transparent application process.
Thank you very much, Ali. Another question, when do you think it will be possible to travel to Dubai for business meetings again without quarantine period? I think we've touched upon it already. So,
yeah,
Ali,
I think,
Ayman, please.
Yes, I think that's the golden question for everybody that everybody is looking for an answer for. But I believe I see some good news is happening, as you touched upon, Mr. Abdul Salam, with regards of the air bubble and the corridor between Dubai or UAE and UK government to create a channel of traveling to decrease the number of procedures and policies that a typical passenger will go through. And I believe this will be very crucial and effective you know, measurement to apply in order for sake of reducing the barrier and making it more convenient to do business between UAE and UK. I did some readings last couple of days, and the air bubble, they call it, is actually put in place as an agreement, and it will actually extend all the way to India, where India will take benefit of such flights, connectivity between UK, UAE, and India.
Excellent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was a great session. But before we go, I think we've got a prize draw. I think is
yes.
You've got the ball
yes,
with the names.
We have you know, provided a very surprising news here for the audience who made their own time and effort today, and we have a raffle draw to give a very beautiful book of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for his 50 years of service in the government, and would like to pass a copy to the lucky drawer. So I'll do my raffle draw here, and the winner of the book is Neil Sahni from Mira International Limited. Neil Sahni from Mira International Limited. Excellent. We will send him the book, inshallah. And we you know, congratulate him and thank you for the attendance for this webinar.
Thank you very much, Ayman, and thank you for participating, everybody, on this superb webinar. Great information, a lot of information, more questions to come after this event, and I think you've earned a rest now. So I wish you all a good day or a good evening, and wherever you are, take care and keep safe. Cheerio.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.